Hi, and thank you for joining me for this video. So this Reactive Outdoor 3-second tent is the most hyped tent on Facebook and Instagram. But what is hype and what is a reality? Now, when you purchase this tent, everything comes in this display box. But what you will notice is that this display box comes all wrapped up. Now, whether the company wants you to think that you're opening a birthday or a Christmas present, I don't really know. But for me, wrapping a display box in wrapping paper is simply promotional theatre. Now, as far as the display box goes itself, it's got lots of pictures, it's got lots of information on it, but it's also definitely got lots of hype. Now, the tent comes in its own storage bag, but I have to say, the quality of the storage bag is really poor. Now, normally the fabric of a tent storage bag is the same as the tent. And looking at this fabric, it is very thin and of poor quality. So already I have concerns with that. Now, you do get a couple of compression straps. Now, the company do state that the buckles on these compression straps are very durable, but having a look at these buckles, I would call them hope buckles. Hope that they don't break. I don't think it's going to take a lot for these buckles to either crack or break. So not much confidence in the compression straps. Now, you do get a handle at the top here, which is a nice touch. However, when I first looked at this handle, I noticed it was twisted. So I thought I'd just untwist it. But no, I can't, because it's actually been sewn on wrong. So much for the quality control. Now, when it comes to the size of this storage bag, the length comes in at around 69 centimeters and the width comes in at around 15 centimeters. The packed weight comes in at around 3.7 kilograms. So this storage bag is too big and too heavy to use for backpacking. But if you haven't got far to walk to where you're going to be camping, or you're going to be driving up to where you're going to be camping, then this storage bag will be absolutely fine. Right, let's get everything out the storage bag, and hopefully, fingers crossed, things will be a lot better. Now, on the inside of your storage bag, you will have another little storage pocket, and on the inside of your storage pocket, you will have some aluminium ground pegs, but I have to say, these aluminium ground pegs are not very good. The quality is pretty poor, and it won't take much for these ground pegs to bend. So if you are thinking about keeping this tent, I would definitely get rid of these ground pegs and get some more premium ground pegs. You also, in the storage pocket, get some nylon guy lines, and like your ground pegs, these are poor quality. So I'd get rid of these, and I would change these up to some Dyneema guy lines. Now, you also get some setup instructions on how to set this tent up correctly, but also how to take it down and pack it away properly. You then get a very nice glossy card, and it says we have included an extra gift. And on the back, the company said that they're going to give you an extended 60-day money-back guarantee. They're also going to give you the ultimate 15 camping meals guide in a printable PDF. And they're also going to give you the ultimate camping packing checklist in a printable PDF. Now, any free gifts is a nice touch, but to be honest, I think the company have spent more money on this glossy card than actually on the gifts they're actually going to give you. Now, you do get your main tent, and your inner tent is already connected to your outer fly, and the poles are already connected. Now, the poles that they're using are fiberglass poles. Now, I understand why the company is using fiberglass poles, because they are cheap, they're light, and they're flexible. However, they are prone to breaking, cracking, and shattering. So we'll have to take a closer look at those poles. Now, the tent itself is kept together with 2 nylon compression straps. These little compression straps aren't very good. So once again, if you're going to keep this tent, I would get rid of these cheap little compression straps and get yourself a couple of bungee cords. You will then get a little waterproof cover to go over the top of your tent. Now, the company did say they were going to send me a free footprint, but that hasn't arrived. Well, it certainly wasn't included in the tent. But listen, we will talk about that in a minute. Now, when it comes to setting up this tent, the first thing you want to do, if you've got your footprint is get your footprint laid out. Now, obviously I didn't receive mine, so I'm just using my own footprint. But if for some reason the deal you have with buying this tent, a footprint is not included, I would still highly recommend using a footprint under this tent. The next thing you want to do is grab your tent and simply turn it on its side so this plastic cover which goes at the top of your tent is facing upwards. All you then do is start folding out the tent poles. When you've done that, you can then grab the ends of your tent poles and fold those out just a little bit more on each corner. Well, that was easy enough. Now the next part to setting up this tent is quick and easy. All you have to do is grab the center mechanism, stands straight up, push the mechanism down in the middle till it clicks into place and you are done. And that's why they call this the 3-second tent. Now yes, there'll be some people saying, well, it's not really a 3-second tent because the time you've got everything out, your storage bag, set up your footprint and then set this tent up and pegged and guided out, it'll be closer to 7 to 8 minutes. And that is true, but I think what the company are trying to say, that just to pop this tent into place only takes around 3 seconds. The next thing you want to do is connect your little rain cover over the top of your tent. Now it's not that your tent isn't waterproof or that there's a mesh window at the top or anything like that. It's just that you will notice the top of your tent is pretty flat, and if it rains there is a potential that the water could start pooling at the top of the tent. So that's why they give you this little rain cover. Now it's easy to attach because you've got a little bit of elastic, a little bit of bungee on each corner with a hook, and then on the corners of your tent there's just some little loops, so they just clip together like that. So that should solve any problems with rain potentially pooling on the top of your tent. However, my concern with this cover is not that it's not waterproof, but actually once connected it's very, very loose and there's no way to actually tighten it up. So if it's going to be pretty windy, this could be flapping around an awful lot. And finally, all you have to do is go round, peg out the remainder of your tent, connect your guy lines, get those pegged out, make any adjustments you need to, and you are done. Now when it comes to packing away this tent, it's quite simply the reverse of how you set it up, and it shouldn't take you any longer to pack it away than what it did when setting it up. Now when it comes to the outer fabric of this tent, including the bathtub floor, this fabric is made from a PU coated 210D polyester Oxford fabric. It also has a hydrostatic head rating of 3000 millimeters. All the seams are also double stitched and tape sealed, so this tent should be completely waterproof. However, there are many complaints online that this tent is not waterproof, and a lot of people saying that when it comes to water getting into this tent, it is generally coming in through the bottom of the tent and through the seams. Now, if this tent was double stitched and tape sealed properly, you wouldn't have that problem. But it also begs the question, over the last year, the company have started giving away a complimentary footprint. Have they started doing this to help combat the problem with the waterproofing on this tent? Now, when it comes to wind resistance, the company claim that this tent can withstand 40-mile-per-hour winds. Now, I did watch a video where someone tested this tent in 40 to 50-mile-per-hour winds, and to be fair, the tent did cope. However, it was flexing all over the show and it was starting to go pretty flat. Now, the reason the company have used these fiberglass poles is because of the flexibility. However, bear in mind, don't get confused with flexibility and real world use, because if you keep exposing fiberglass poles, even though they are flexible, to high winds, eventually they would break. Coupled with all these reinforced plastic joints on this tent, I don't think it would last very long. Now, when it comes to this tent has 2 doors. So whatever I show you this side is exactly the same on the other side. Now, that's great if you're sharing with someone, because at least you're not having to climb over each other to get in and out of your tent. Now, when it comes to the outer doors, these can simply just be unzipped, rolled, and toggled back. At the top of the door, you do get a mesh panel with a solid fabric panel behind that you can either roll and toggle up, so you can get a nice bit of airflow going through your tent, or you can just keep it zipped up to knock out the lights and give you a bit more privacy. Now, when it comes to the zips on this tent, they are covered with a storm flap. However, the storm flap doesn't have any Velcro on. So if it is going to get really windy, these storm flaps would be flapping all over the show. Now, when it comes to the zips on this tent, this is one of the biggest complaints online, nearly as much as the waterproofing concerns, and that people are saying that these tent zips just stick and they snag a lot of the time. One guy actually resorted to actually just gluing up one side of his tent on the zip because he was fed up with the tent zip sticking and snagging. So yeah, a lot of concerns and issues regarding the zips on this tent. Right, a little bit more information on this tent. Now, this tent comes in a choice of 2 sizes. I've gone for it in the 1 to 2 person version, but you can also get it in a 2 to 3 person version. The tents just come in the one color, which is this green. And then apart from size, weight, price, etc., both size tents are made exactly the same. This tent is also classed as a 3-season tent. And here in the UK, this 1 to 2 person version of this tent sells for around £100. Right, let's have a good look inside this tent. Now, when it comes to the internal size, the length comes in at around 200 centimeters. The width comes in at around 135 centimeters. And then the internal height comes in at around 130 centimeters. As you can see, you get a little lamp hook on the ceiling. You also get a nice little bit of mesh that goes across the top of the ceiling, which is going to aid airflow, help reduce any condensation, but also help keep any insects out. You also get one little storage pocket down one end, and then as you can see on the far window, I have unzipped and rolled the inner fabric panel down so you can get a nice little bit of airflow coming through, and obviously you can do exactly the same on this side. Now, this is designed as a 1 to 2 person tent, but I've got to be honest, it's a great size for 1 person, but there's no way I'd be sharing this tent with anyone else. It's just too small. Now, when it comes to this tent, I've personally used this tent, but I wouldn't say I've fully tested this tent. However, I have spoken to several people that have fully tested this tent. I've also watched many videos on this tent, and I have read countless reviews online. So my final thoughts on this reactive 3-second tent would be as follows. First of all, there is definitely a lot of feedback on this tent. Secondly, I would say from a positive side of things, there's a lot of people that have genuinely been very happy with this tent when this tent has been set up and used in the right conditions. On the negative side of things, there are a lot of people that have said that the quality of this tent has not matched their expectations. And from my personal point of view, looking at all the social media ads on this tent and all the hype surrounding this tent, would I say that the adverts are misleading or even a scam? Well, no, I wouldn't say that. However, what I would say is that all the hype surrounding this tent doesn't reflect real world use. But listen, in saying that, you let me know what you think about this tent, and is this a tent you would consider buying? Let me know your comments either way. But on that note, if you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And lastly, don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.